What happens when the spotlight that made you a star also becomes your greatest burden? Judy Garland's life was filled with applause, but behind the curtain was a haunting story of control, addiction, and heartbreak. Let's uncover the heartbreaking truth behind Hollywood's first broken star. She had a voice that could stop time, a smile that lit up the screen, and a presence that made her unforgettable. But behind the dazzling lights of Hollywood was a deeply troubled soul. This is the tragedy of Judy Garland, Hollywood's first broken star. The rise of a star. Judy Garland was born Frances Ethel Gum on June 10, 1922, in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Her parents ran a vaudeville theater, and by the time she was just 2 years old, she was already singing and performing on stage. By age 6, she and her 2 sisters formed the group the Gum Sisters. But it was Judy who stood out. She had something magnetic, a vibrato in her voice that carried an emotional weight far beyond her years. When the family moved to California in the 1930s, Judy caught the attention of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the most powerful studio in Hollywood. At just 13 years old, she signed a contract with MGM, and her transformation from Frances Gum to Judy Garland began. But the price of fame would be far greater than anyone could have imagined. The Wizard of Oz and the illusion of stardom. In 1939, Judy landed the role that would define her career, Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz. At just 16, she became America's sweetheart, singing "Over the Rainbow," a song that would become synonymous with her name and, ironically, her lifelong yearning for escape. The film was a commercial success, and Judy's star soared. But what audiences didn't see was the immense pressure she was under behind the scenes. MGM had begun controlling every aspect of her life, from her weight and appearance to her voice and behavior. Executives called her fat and forced her to wear a corset to look younger and thinner. She was prescribed amphetamines to suppress her appetite and stay awake, and barbiturates to help her sleep. She was 16 and already chemically dependent. Her studio handlers monitored everything she ate, how she looked, and how she performed. She was no longer a girl. She was a product, a life of control and exploitation. Hollywood in the 1930s and 40s was not kind to its stars, especially not to young women. Judy was caught in a system that valued profit over well-being. Her mother, Ethel Gum, was complicit. According to Judy, her mother pushed her relentlessly, even allowing studio doctors to administer pills without consent. Judy would later call her mother the real Wicked Witch of the West. Her workload was punishing. She often worked 18-hour days with barely any time to rest or recover. If she collapsed from exhaustion, she was given more drugs and told to smile for the camera. She was never taught to be a person, only a performer. Judy later confessed, "They'd give us pills to keep us on our feet long after we were exhausted. Then they'd knock us out with sleeping pills. After 4 hours, they'd wake us up and give us the pep pills again." This vicious cycle became her reality. By the time she reached her 20s, Judy Garland was deeply addicted, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. Cracks in the facade. Despite her personal battles, Judy continued to dazzle on screen. Films like Meet Me in St. Louis and Easter Parade cemented her as a box office draw, but her mental and physical health were deteriorating rapidly. In 1947, at the age of just 25, she suffered a nervous breakdown. She was hospitalized and placed on psychiatric watch. Still, the studio expected her to return to work and return to the spotlight. Her relationships began to fracture. She married 5 times, often to men who exploited or failed to understand her trauma. Her marriage to director Vincente Minnelli, the father of her daughter Liza Minnelli, ended in divorce. Each relationship seemed to reflect the same cycle of instability she experienced in Hollywood. Judy was often suicidal, making multiple attempts throughout her life. One such incident, in 1950, resulted in her being dropped by MGM, the studio that had created her, controlled her, and ultimately discarded her. She was just 28, a career in chaos, a voice that endured. Even after being cast aside by the industry that made her famous, Judy Garland refused to disappear. She mounted several comebacks, on stage, on radio, and eventually on television. Her 1954 film, A Star is Born, was meant to be her grand return. Though she gave a stunning performance and earned an Academy Award nomination, she lost, sparking outrage and confirming suspicions that the industry had turned its back on her. But she was still beloved by audiences. Her live performances, especially at Carnegie Hall in 1961, became legendary. That concert was dubbed the greatest night in show business history, and the album won 4 Grammys. And yet, even in moments of triumph, she remained a woman at war with herself. Financial instability, addiction, and chronic illness plagued her. She was often broke, swindled by managers, and heavily in debt due to medical bills and mismanagement. To survive, she took on any work she could get, even when she was physically unable to perform. Her voice, once golden, began to crack. But audiences didn't come just to hear her sing. They came to witness her resilience. The final act. In 1969, Judy Garland was living in London, trying to piece her life together once again. She was just 47, but looked far older, worn down by years of abuse, both self-inflicted and systemic. She had recently married her 5th husband, Mickey Deans, a nightclub manager 12 years her junior. Friends said she was unstable, exhausted, and physically frail. On June 22, 1969, just 12 days after her birthday, Judy Garland was found dead in her bathroom. The cause? An overdose of barbiturates. Her death was ruled accidental, but to those who knew her, it felt inevitable. The girl who once sang about life over the rainbow had spent most of her days lost in the storm. She left behind 3 children, including Liza Minnelli, who would go on to become a star in her own right. The legacy of a broken star. Judy Garland's death shocked the world, but it also exposed the dark underbelly of the Hollywood system. She was a victim of an industry that chewed up young talent and discarded them when they were no longer profitable. Her life became a cautionary tale of what happens when stardom comes before self and when no one is there to protect the vulnerable. Today, we remember her not just as Dorothy or a vaudeville prodigy, but as a woman who tried, over and over again, to reclaim her voice. Her influence is everywhere, in music, film, and pop culture. Icons like Barbra Streisand, Lady Gaga, and Adele have cited her as an inspiration. Her story has been told in books, plays, and in the 2019 film, Judy, starring Renee Zellweger, which earned an Oscar for Best Actress. But perhaps the most powerful legacy Judy left behind was the reminder that even the brightest stars can break when no one sees the person behind the performance. Judy Garland once asked, "If I am a legend, then why am I so lonely?" The answer lies not in the lights of Hollywood, but in the shadow it cast. Rest in peace, Judy. You deserved better. What do you think was the biggest turning point in Judy's life? And could Hollywood have done more to protect her? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive like this.